Hi, folks. Okay, it's just gone past 7 o'clock and it's 10 o'clock in the UK. And our guest today is from the UK, and our host, of course, is from the UK in the place of Poole and Dorset. Our guest, of course, also in England and Wiltshire. So without further ado, I'll bring Andrena on, and it'll be a good morning to you.
Hi, welcome and good morning, everybody, from a beautiful sunny England. We've had sun this week, and a lot of us have got a bit of a healthy glow about us. I'm using my mobile phone, so I'm having a few technical issues with my PC, so I'm hoping everything's going to go okay. But it's my pleasure to welcome back Clive De Carle, who is an amazing health expert in health. And we've had such a response that everybody really enjoyed what you had to say and learned so much from you that it's my delight and pleasure to have you back again. So good morning and welcome, Clive.
Good morning. Thank you very much for inviting me, Andrena. Thank you.
I'm not quite sure where we're going with today. So speaking with different friends at the moment, everybody seems to be having so many different issues. And even myself, I've had aches and pains, I've had tiredness, I've lost my get up and go some days. And but I have been taking diatomaceous earth and a couple of other things, which has certainly given me a boost. So what would you recommend now with because so many people have had different injections, and some haven't, and some feeling this, some are feeling that. What would you recommend as a starter for people to really start to pick themselves up and feel better, feel more alive?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think the first thing would be that I would suggest iodine as a good start, because £20, something like 45, 50 Australian dollars would buy you a year's supply. Now, pretty much everybody is low on iodine. I don't know how much we talked about it before, but anybody who's not filtering the chlorine out of the water, anybody who is eating bread products that have flour improver, which is bromine, anybody who's swimming in swimming pools, anybody using fluoride toothpaste, or in Australia, obviously it's fluoridated over there, so everybody is going to be low on iodine, every single person in a fluoridated country, unless they're filtering it out. And so what happens if you're low on iodine? Well, the thyroid doesn't work properly, and if the thyroid doesn't work properly, you're likely to have low energy, possibly put on weight, probably have dry skin, possibly the older one gets, one's memory begins to go. Anybody whose temperature is out of control, they're too cold or they're too hot. You know, menopausal women would be a good example of people who get too hot. Whereas in Japan, where they get loads of iodine from all the seaweed that they eat every day, all the sea fish they eat, that they don't, up until recently, they didn't have a word in the Japanese language for menopause because they didn't get it because of the iodine. So you can reckon that most people are going to be low on iodine. So the most iodine goes into the thyroid. And if your thyroid is full of iodine, then as the blood every few minutes passes through the thyroid, iodine knocks out the pathogens. That's what iodine does, amongst other, and it also controls your hormones to a degree. And so most people haven't got enough iodine in their thyroid, so they get a bacterial infection or something like that and get knocked down through lack of iodine. You know, iodine's, you know, in one sense, your first line of defense. And in the operating room, before they do surgery, they paint you with iodine. So as they cut you open, you don't get an infection. You know, it's still the best thing out there. So in the second place in the body that has the most iodine is in women, the breasts. So again, in Japan, breast cancer is much rarer than it is here because of the iodine. So it's worth looking at an iodine deficiency. If a woman is pregnant and she gives birth to a baby while she's iodine deficient, the baby will have a low IQ.
Yeah. I know in the past when I put iodine or I've taken it, and people say put it on your wrist, you know, so you've got like a patch. And I think it was that if it disappeared immediately, your body really needs iodine. Would you say that people tested like that, or would you? Because I know I've got the iodine here, and I think it's like 2 drops a day to take daily. Is it?
It depends what type of iodine you've got.
Well, I got yours.
Oh, well, you've got the best. You know, there's nascent iodine, which is, I think, very, very weak, and I don't like it. Then there's the one that I recommend, which is Lugol's iodine, and that's powerful stuff. So 2 drops a day would be equivalent of what the Japanese eat in food. But I don't recommend that everybody takes 2 drops every day. And for legal reasons, I need to say that anything I'm suggesting is my personal health experience. I'm not medically qualified, so I'm not giving medical advice. So, you know, my not being medical, my field is health, you know, totally different field to medicine. So 5 days a week might be fine for iodine, but you know, if you're a small person, that might be too much. If you're big, it might not be enough. And it's very, very important to study it. Iodine, you could put into a search engine iodine natural cures or something like that. Or there's a great website called earthclinic.com, which is, if you put iodine there, you'll see what it can do. Or I have a private members club called secrethealthclub.com, and on Secret Health Club we've got a whole section on iodine, section on thyroid, and so on. And it makes such a difference. With some people, it's all within days. The brain fog has lifted and they're thinking clearly. And for some people, it might have been 10 years of, you know, walking into a room, forgetting why you walked in, just brain fog. And some people come off their levothyroxine because they don't need it anymore. You know, the drugs that they've been on for decades. Some people can come off because what the problem was in the first place was lack of iodine, not lack of a drug. So yeah, that's Earth Clinic. And
yeah, because I know you have got a shop. What is it? CliveDeCarle.com. You've got the shop where I know I've bought some of your products through the shop, and I know sometimes there's a discount as well. So, I mean, people can go, like you say, and I mean, I find your Secret Health Club. There's so much information on there. It's just incredible. And I've guided lots of people to take a look and watch the videos because there's, like you say, you've just put out so much information. So that would be number 1. So I know, you know, because in the past, like I've had vitamin C, I've had zinc, I've had vitamin D, vitamin B, and you know, you could go on and on, can't you? So so really, I think what is the key, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 you would recommend? Like obviously iodine's number 1. What else would you recommend?
Well, the main supplements that I took 37 years ago, which got me out of hospital when the doctors gave up, was magnesium, number 1, vitamin C, number 2, then making sure you've got a good mineral balance generally. And so I like the what's called fulvic minerals, the trace elements from the soil, because they're perfectly balanced. But magnesium's the big one, and we ran through last time I was on the symptoms of that, you know, just to remind people, magnesium deficiency could be one of many things, but it could be heart arrhythmia, heart attacks, could be migraines, headaches, epilepsy, could be muscle aches, muscle fatigue, back pain, could be arthritis, which was what happened to me. I had arthritis so badly I couldn't get dressed. And it could be constipation. It could be restless leg. It could be depression, suicidal thoughts. It can be so many things. And magnesium is the number one mineral. It controls everything. Without magnesium, thousands of different parts, if you don't work as efficiently as they could. And a good example of magnesium killing people is if you're getting twitches around the eyes, if you're getting menstrual cramps, if you're getting muscle cramps, you stretch and your backs of your legs or your foot cramps up, this is magnesium deficiency. If you've got a cramp of your heart, that would be called a heart attack. If you went on a marathon or you're a sportsman and you played a heavy game of professional football and you drop down dead at the end of it, which quite often happens, they just collapse after exertion. What can happen is you can sweat out the magnesium in your body to such a degree that your heart can stop and pump. So why would anybody be low on magnesium? Well, stress. Our response to stress is to use magnesium to calm us down. Magnesium calms down every cell of your body. It calms down your mind, your bowels calm down, and they relax. And the people who are constipated suddenly find that with the right amount of magnesium, bowel movements become easy. I mean, it's really quite simple, assuming they're properly hydrated, I would suggest.
Yeah.
And magnesium is just a miracle for most people. But let's say some people have taken magnesium already. The chances are they've taken magnesium oxide, which works really badly, and there's very little point in using that type. But that's what most people try, because that's the cheap one, the one that's in the stores. Whereas ideally, perhaps a blend, which I like, of several types of magnesium that actually are bioavailable and don't leave you up in the bathroom is, what happens, because the body self-regulates so many areas. The body is so much more intelligent than we think. So if you take too much magnesium, then an overdose means you're in the bathroom with diarrhea. The body knows exactly what to do with too much. So it's very difficult to get too much. The only risk would be if somebody's got kidney failure, then they would want to research what would be the safe amount for them. But most people, I say, have you taken magnesium? Say, yeah, I've tried it. I say, how many did you take a day? And they say, well, 1 or 2. And so I recommend to people who have those symptoms that they may be so low that for a few days they might want to take 12 over a day. So most people are horrified by such an idea. 12, that's ridiculous. But actually, you want to have an instant result. Maybe I've told you the story before, but the fastest result I ever had was with my friend Crow, who has a radio interview, and he was telling me that his sister had got trigger finger, where she couldn't straighten her finger, and she just had an operation, which was expensive, and it had taken her a while. She was still recovering from this operation. So I'd sent him some magnesium and some vitamin C in advance of the show, and I told him to take some right there and then at the beginning of the show, and about 1 hour later, his finger straightens in 1 hour. Well, that's not going to happen every time. It might take a day, or it might take a few days, but I reversed my rheumatoid arthritis. I was crippled, and that was 37 years ago, and I'm fine. I just take some magnesium, not every day because I forget, but most days. And I take usually 3 or 4. That seems to be what suits me. But some people, particularly if they're stressed, depressed, then they might want more, or in a lot of pain. I'm now not damaging my body with what gave me the pain and arthritis in the first place, which incidentally, as well as not eating that well, but what did it was one antibiotic, and bam, that knocked me out. over the years, I met loads of other people who told me the same story. Yeah. Because I became type 1 diabetic at that time. And I've met other people who, did the antibiotic and they became arthritic and type 1 diabetic. No history in the family or anything like that.
I know when I spoke to you previous, oh no, I saw you at a conference, that's right, and I asked you, and I purchased your magnesium, and you said to take 12 a day, and I was thinking, 12 a day? But obviously, I mean, I hadn't taken magnesium, I think, for a long time, so I know that was one of the things that kick-started my body. And I know when I was in Australia, I never had all these aches and pains, but I know since being back and, like lack of sunshine and the warmth and the damp climate here has really affected me. So obviously, I've had to do so many different things. And so I am doing your iodine every now and again. I am doing your magnesium. I'm doing the vitamin C and the Volvic minerals, and I'm feeling so much better than since I've started on all these. And these are some of the things that I hadn't thought about. I hadn't really looked into, to be honest, till I came back, and then I thought, gosh, diets. The diet here is complete opposite to what it was. So I've had to address many things. I sent a message because I'm on my phone. I can't see now, but I did have one friend who said, "Could we ask about something?" So if Jeff can find it in, I think I put it in the main three. She asked if you could give any advice about something. I've forgotten what it, and I can't, of course, because I'm on my phone now. I can't look at the same time. Can you see that?
Interstitial cystitis. Okay. So anything with an itis at the end is indicative of inflammation. That's essentially what it means. And there are lots of inflammatory diseases like heart problems, often cancer, all sorts of inflammatory diseases. So if you've got something with an itis, like arthritis, for instance, then you've got inflammation. So what's going on? Well, inflammation is healing. Right, so if you've got inflammation, it means your body is working really, really hard to try and fix yourself. A good example would be if you cut yourself. What happens? It gets inflamed, the temperature goes up. So a rise in temperature means a rise in healing capabilities. That's one of the reasons why iodine is so useful, because it can balance temperature. So if you get a high temperature, that means your body is doing really well. If it's inflamed, you're doing really well. But of course, that means pain. Inflammation means pain. So people think, oh dear, my body's gone wrong. It's got inflamed. I must take an anti-inflammatory. And they don't realize they're turning the healing method off. A child gets ill and they get a very high temperature. Well, that's the body trying to get rid of the bacteria or whatever it is that, is trying to make a correction. So there is one argument which goes that all illness is something that happened to you, but everything beyond that is healing. Now, with that mental attitude, people who've got something desperately wrong with them, if they realize that they're not being attacked by this thing, actually, it's the body trying to help them, but that help may be so desperate that it kills them. But why do we get ill in the first place? Toxic poisoning, a nutrient deficiency, and the emotional element. So there are many practitioners out there who look at it this way. Did something happen to you dramatic, traumatic in your life before the illness happened? Now, on one level, it could go back to in the womb. Your mum gets beaten up by the dad, or something traumatic happens. Now that's going to, at a subconscious level, affect you your whole life, isn't it?
Of course.
And so if somebody believes something emotional, let's say they go looking for cancer because they find a lump. They could go looking for health, right? But if they go looking for cancer, then the subconscious believes they must want it, particularly as now they're thinking about this cancer thing all the time. It's taking up their whole mindset. So the body could be assuming, well, they must want it. They're thinking about it all the time, and actually go to places like hospitals and get scanned and stuff like that. And so if the doctor says, well, you've got 6 months to live, and you believe it, the chances are you're going to live 6 months. There is the great story of the man who says to the private doctor, well, I won't have enough money in 6 months to pay you, doctor. And he says, that's all right, I'll give you an extra 3 months.
Love it. Yeah.
So if you can deal with the emotional issues, I mean, when I was studying cancer survivors, I wanted to know what they did right. And I was expecting to see vitamin C maybe at the top, vitamin D at the top. But almost all of them said that what it was gratitude. What it was is that they realized the cancer had happened for a reason. It doesn't have to, it could be any disease, but there was a reason behind it. And in some cases, they said stuff like, I changed my diet. Others said things like, I forgave the rapist. Or they might say, I divorced the wife. Or, you know, whatever was holding them back needed to be forgiven and then be grateful, because the bad things that happen, generally speaking, they seem horrible at the time. But you look back and, well, I'm sort of glad that happened because all these other doors opened, you know, that sort of thing. So I got off the subject of cystitis. So if you've got an infection going on, it's going to create inflammation. How do you turn off inflammation? By, if it's a bacterial infection, killing that off. How can you do that? Well, vitamin C works very well for that position. So I recommend to everybody pretty much a short video. It's 4 minutes long. It's Dr. Andrew Saul, and it's called Reverse Pneumonia in 3 Hours, where he's got bacterial pneumonia. He takes 2 grams, that would be about half a teaspoonful of pure powdered vitamin C, in water, 2 grams, 2,000 milligrams, that is, every 6 minutes. Right? 2 grams every 6 minutes. And 3 hours later, his temperature's dropped 3 degrees because it's no longer necessary, because his cough has stopped. All the symptoms of pneumonia have ended, because bacteria is fast reproducing, right? Bacteria might reproduce, who knows, every 2 hours, say. So if you hit it every 6 minutes, you're going to outrun it. So then there are other materials. There is a product I got on the website called Prozyme, Prozyme, which is a proteolytic enzyme. Now, proteolytic enzymes dissolve proteins in your body that shouldn't be there. So they will dissolve things like fibroids, anything with an osis at the end. You know, people die of an osis or an itis. So if it's an osis, that's a buildup of scar tissue. And proteolytic enzymes, if you take them away from food, you know, if you ate it at the same time you ate protein, they'd digest that for you. And anybody's having a problem digesting protein, they could use a proteolytic enzyme with a meal. However, if you take it away, a couple of hours away from protein, then it starts dissolving fibroids and attacking the inflammation, calming down the inflammation and allowing the body to recycle the cells back into normal, healthy cells. And, you know, healthy cells work 10 times more efficiently than scar tissue. Healthy cells work properly and aren't inflamed. So, you know, there are many other things you can do, but you can stop cystitis very quickly in many cases. So a material that some people like is called D-mannose. D-mannose. Anything with an O's in the end is like sugar, like glucose. D-mannose. And for some people, that appears to be something that helps them dramatically getting rid of cystitis. Alternatives would be 10 parts per million colloidal silver. You could use other antioxidants, the amino acids. I know you talked to Darren Diogi. Amino acids can help boost glutathione, which is the material the body makes itself from the liver as its number one antioxidant. So, taking antioxidants can be a fantastically useful thing.
Yeah, because I know she's had it for 2 or 3 weeks now, so hence her asking, what could help.
So with antioxidants, it's knowing how much to take. Now, if I take some vitamin C, which again, when I remember, I try to do, I might take half a teaspoonful, and that should be fine because I'm eating well, fruit and veg, and I'm fine. So, but other people, if they're not so fine, let's say they've got cystitis, well, then it may be that they're going to need 100 times that much vitamin C or 20 times. It doesn't matter. The body will absorb everything it needs. And just like magnesium, I was saying earlier, you take too much vitamin C, you end up in the bathroom with diarrhea, and the body says too much. Now, for some people, a clear out like that every now and then might not be a bad thing. So, I've had people, husband and wife, eating the same diet. He's needed 20 grams over the day, spread out. If you take too much at once, you're in the bathroom. So you find out how much you can take. Can you take a quarter of a teaspoonful? Can you take more? And once let's say you decide, okay, half a teaspoonful, that's the maximum I want to take. So you just take it regularly over the day. So the husband, he needed 20 grams. The wife got to 85 grams and ran out of daytime to take the stuff. She was ill, right? Her body was calling for it. And so let's say somebody gets to 20 grams, that they're in the bathroom. Well, that was too much. So the next day, try 17 grams or something, 10% less maybe, something like that. And then if you end up in the bathroom again in a couple of days or a day, well, you can just reduce it, but you can the point is to knock it out and try and knock it out fast.
Okay, thank you for that one. Another friend has got, excuse me, hip problems, and where it's all calcified. And I know that I believe that was part of the aging process for that to happen. Can you enlighten me on that?
Sure. No, it's not.
It's not aging, right. Good to know. No. So what would one do?
See, because everybody's low on magnesium. Magnesium dissolves calcium. When I had rheumatoid arthritis, I had calcified joints all over me. I started taking magnesium, and the magnesium dissolved the calcium. With osteoarthritis, it's not so easy. They still need magnesium. That was probably why they got the osteoarthritis. But once the sort of bones twist and fuse, then it's a bit late to try and dissolve it. But with rheumatoid, then that's so relatively easy. So anybody who's got hip issues, knee issues, the sort of thing that the doctors have a procedure for, I can guarantee it, you're all low on magnesium. You might be low on other things as well, because pretty much everybody's on everything, aren't they? But magnesium is the very first thing to try. You could get the liquid and rub it on every hour right into where it hurts. I find that boring and sticky, so I prefer to just take capsules. And things should free up. You might notice them free up on day one. Might take longer, depends. And then stop eating the inflammatory foods that will have caused it in the first place. If you're eating lots of oils out of bottles that aren't extra virgin cold pressed, just getting the average sunflower oil from the store, it's going to be damaging you for a whole host of reasons. If you're eating bread that's not made the old-fashioned way, where they let it rise and let it go down, and let it rise and let it go down, and they did that stuff to the bread for about 8 hours before baking it, that made it safe. That when I was young, nobody had a problem with gluten, nobody had a problem with wheat. I wasn't aware of anybody having celiac. It's a relatively new thing. And it's because the foods have been poisoned and hybridized, and many things have happened. So, anybody's got inflammation, back down to cystitis. What's wrong? What is wrong? Cranberries are another one for cystitis. Unsweetened, pure, not with apple juice or anything, pure cranberry juice can be useful for any urinary tract infection.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I was going to say, a lot of these things do boil down to diet as well, don't they?
We are what we eat. We are what we eat, drink, think, and do. And what we've been pre-programmed with, which is part of the thinking part. People have been taught to believe everything they hear. So anything I'm saying, check it for yourself. And if I've accidentally used the word cancer, I'm spelling it with a K for legal reasons.
I hear you. Excuse me. Okay, so we've got iodine, we've got magnesium, and obviously vitamin C.
Okay, well, there's one that goes with iodine, which is selenium. Selenium comes in various forms. It comes in the form of Brazil nuts. And I'm told that Brazil nuts grow in the wild, so they're all organic because they haven't found a way to farm them. That's what I'm told. It used to be the case anyway, so you don't have to spend extra money. And but you've got to eat at least half a dozen of those to get a significant amount of selenium. But when you're taking iodine, it's a really wise idea to take selenium with it. Now, there's one bad kind, which is called selenium selenite. Then there's a good one, which is called selenomethionine, which is commonly available. Or the best one, which comes as a liquid form, I have on my website. That's the version of selenium that I sell. Now, when people see it, there's a year's supply in a teeny tiny bottle. You only need one drop every 2 or 3 days or something. Personally, I take maybe 10 drops every now and then when I am in the mood.
Yeah.
But soils worldwide are devoid of all the minerals, and selenium is a big one. Now, people who lack selenium, women who lack selenium, risk birth defects if they have a child. It's quite serious, the selenium deficiency. People who are addicted find that if they take a very large dose of this particular type of liquid selenium, I've had people come off all sorts of pharmaceuticals, methadone, heroin. There were tests done with this particular type decades ago in New York with methadone, getting people off methadone, and it was the best way to do it. But they had all got covered up and swept under the carpet and forgotten about us. It didn't suit them. So selenium is very interesting. So I had somebody, for instance, as an example, and this isn't health advice, it's just his experience. He took 7 drops for 3 days, and for I think 18 years since he was young, what had happened was that he'd been on medication. I'm trying to remember which type it was. It completely escapes me. I must need some iodine to get my memory back. But it was ADHD medication. And every time he tried to come off, he couldn't. He was back on it. 3 days on 7 drops of the selenium, and he's off. And he's never been able to do that before. And then I recommended that he went down to 1 drop every couple of days or so. I'd actually recommended him he should take 10, but he chickened out and only took 7. Anyway, I recommended to somebody else that they try 20, and immediately they wanted to stop their red wine addiction, and again within 3 days ended, and their hair color came back. You might remember, if you're old enough, years ago they used to sell selenium shampoo.
Really? I don't know.
Yeah, it stops dandruff. It's good for the skin.
I think I recall.
So many other things with selenium. I've had people have all sorts of results. Because at the end of the day, it's not what the selenium necessarily does or what the vitamin C necessarily does. It's what your body does. So if your body's missing bits, then all you need to do is put the bits back in, and then the body gets on with repairing as it should. You know, we should die healthy at the end of our lives. Maybe we fall asleep one day and don't wake up, but I don't believe that we necessarily need to die of something nasty. I mean, to give you an example, a friend of mine is a medical doctor in America, and by the time she was about 40 something, she'd made enough money to have a stair lift put in her house, because as a medical doctor, she was convinced that she was going to need it. How crazy is that?
Crazy. So she's already thought process out, hasn't she? And it's like
it's self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, but
luckily I know she woke up.
Yeah, I know people that have that get blood pressure monitors, and they're always checking their blood pressure. And like I said, well, you're looking for it, so you're going to create that. You know, it's all these different gadgets. You know, is looking outside of yourself to find out what's going on, what you need to address, isn't it?
Correct.
Absolutely right. I mean, we are connected beings. The way I see people is they wake up in the morning because their radio alarm clock has gone off or something, having previously slept with their mobile phone right next to their ear all night. Then they get depressed because they got to go to work, which they hate because they haven't found what they want to do. Eat a really rubbish breakfast that damages their immune system. They can't think straight because of all the sugar and poisonous food they've had, and it just goes on and on. And I think one of the things it comes down to is that some people, they follow the outcome. You know, I would say that probably we're in that category where we've got an outcome we want to follow, and we're not following the income, we're following the outcome. And most people follow the income, don't they? They do a job they hate because they haven't got the bravery, or they haven't spent enough time thinking, or, you know, if want of a better word, meditating, even if that's walking in the forest. Their whole day is taken up by having their brain entertained. And as a result of that, they haven't found what's inside, which is why they're here in the first place.
Yeah. And sadly, and I know in the past, the phone is a big addiction, and I have to switch it off now because of the Wi-Fi affects me and what have you. But you just see people from morning to night, they're just on their phone, and it's just damaging so much that. But I think they don't know how to do without it now, to be with themselves.
Well, you know, possibly when you spoke to Darren Diogi, he talked about this, which is the amino acids, because 30% of people are addicts or could easily be addicts. And I'm in that category myself. You know, I've got all sorts of addictions that I enjoy, from tea to chocolate and cheese, and, you know, so, but the thing is having them in a balance, so you don't overdo any one of them. So the amino acids that Darren and I both, you know, manufacture together are brilliant for filling the dopamine gaps. So, you know, people who are addicted, smoking, sex, gambling, phones, whatever it is, they're getting a dopamine hit. So if you get the right amino acids, which are what they call the essential amino acids, the ones you have to get by eating. And so vegans have a problem with this because they're not getting enough amino acids in many cases. You put the amino acids in the right quantity, and suddenly your dopamine receptors are full without having to have 3 glasses of beer to do it, or whatever it might be. And people can wean themselves off the addictions. And you start adding fulvic minerals, which are good for it, vitamin C that's good for addictions, selenium. And if people can find that change is much easier than when they've ever tried before, or they think it might be.
Interesting.
One of my ex-assistants, if she didn't have half a teaspoonful of amino acids in the morning. She was a bit blur all day, but just half a teaspoonful. Some people need a whole teaspoonful or even more. Just ping, and she was alive and feeling good. It's worth trying, because you'll know within days whether it's right for you or not. Let me tell you another Darren story. He had this huge ganglion on the back of his hand, quite a big growth like that, and we treated it with a frequency device, and it went down. But he's he thought it might be his phone, so he stopped using the phone in that hand. It went down completely. Started using the phone in the hand, and the ganglion came back.
Really? Gosh.
One's got to be quite careful of some of these devices for the electrosensitive. Did I tell you the story about the woman who'd been diagnosed with MS, but it wasn't?
No, can't recall.
So
No.
she's in her mid-30s, 4 children, can't look after them anymore. She can't go to the toilet by herself, can no longer get dressed by herself, diagnosed with MS. It wasn't MS. It was her plasma television that was going wrong, and a frequency from it was giving her the symptoms of MS. 12 weeks later, no MS. So what if somebody was conceivably sleeping in a flat where the people next door, the bedroom next door to their bedroom, has got a plasma television that's not working well, and they've been diagnosed with MS? It can happen. So similarly, vegans beware that if you run out of B12, which is hard to get from anything but fermented vegetables, or meat products, animal products, that could be a decade or so, you run out of B12. And if you run out of B12, it could be 20 years into being a vegan, it could be less, it could be much less, could be 2. Anyway, people get very weak if they run out of B12, and the doctors diagnose B12 deficiency sometimes as multiple sclerosis, as Parkinson's disease, and dementia. Right? So we're omnivores, I reckon. And I'm speaking as somebody who didn't eat meat for 25 years, but I do now.
Wow.
But I did eat meat products like cheese.
Wow. So, I mean, I learn something each time, and I like today. I'm thinking like maybe I need to get the selenium drops to add to my collection of different things. But I know I've since talking to Darren, because I saw him at the Better Way conference, and I took the amino acids, and I've had them since Friday, and I tell you what, I feel such a difference. I feel more alive, more vibrant. I'm not aching in pain in so much. So it's like another little key in the puzzle of health, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. The amino acids can help people sleep as well. They give you more energy at one end, but they can also make you sleep better, which, I mean, myself, I take them and I notice zero. I can't tell. But some people aren't maybe quite so well. And there are other ones. I mean, for, let's say somebody is getting quite old and weak, what I'd suggest to them, along with the amino acids, because amino acids build muscle, they're great. But another one that I would suggest would be the digestive enzymes, because as we get older, we're just not able to digest food the way we did when we were 5. So if you take a digestive enzyme with each meal, then that can do the work for you. I mean, let's say somebody's 90. Well, they could eat the best food, but are they getting it? Is it, going into the cells? So if they were to take a digestive enzyme, they might arguably perhaps get twice the benefit from the food, because the digestive enzymes would help break the food into a mush, so to speak. So yeah, You know, if I had somebody elderly and they'd do it, I'd also give them probiotics. You know, my dad is 96, and he loves probiotics because they've worked for him. You know, he noticed. So
Yeah, I was going to ask about your dad because I know your dad took a little turn and not being very well, and I was just wondering. And I think you said he's 96. What has he been taking? Because obviously he's well and normally and active, and obviously you've advised him different things to take to help him keep him going.
yes, well, he totally ignores almost everything I say.
I love it.
His diet is fish and chips
Ah,
at the pub, and he's been on heart medications for probably 50 years.
right.
And every time he has a flu jab or whatever, or a COVID jab, he's so proud. But he does it to wind me up. You know? He kept on getting pneumonia, and he would rather listen to the person in the pharmacist shop than me. And everything his doctor says is right. And I find it increasingly hard to argue with him because after 50 years of drugs and he's 96. I mean, it was only about 3 or 4 years ago that he got really pissed off. He had to stop driving his Jag. They wouldn't let him anymore. But basically, what I put it down to is actually had an incredibly good start. So he was born in the late 1926 or something like that. Can't add right now. And his dad grew food at home. They grew food. And then when the Second World War happened, everybody got healthy in the Second World War because they all were eating proper food again. Massive boost in health. You'd think it would be the opposite. Oh, they're all starving to death. Well, they got thin. That maybe wasn't too bad a thing, but they were eating proper food grown in the back garden. It was fresh. Fresh food is full of vitamins, but week-old food, most of the minerals are there, but the vitamins are gone, gone a lot. So I see people who got a natural start eating fairly decent foods. And I've met loads of people in my life from, let's say, Nigeria, parts of Africa, and I can confidently say to them, all your relatives lived over 100, didn't they? They don't anymore. But you eat a good natural diet and not having a war with somebody, you can live a long time. The people who lived the longest were in the Pakistan, Afghanistan region. There was a principality called the Hunza, and the Hunza people had this unique landscape very high up. All the water was from a glacier, and as the glacier rolled its way down the mountain, it ripped all the minerals out of the soil. They call it glacial milk because it was sort of milky coloured. And they got taken over by the British, who obviously wanted to tax them and find out what day they were born, how long they lived, and so on. And there are records of women giving birth in their 70s, people still working 120. It's not that long ago. If anybody's interested, there's an old book you can buy cheaply online called Wheel of Health. Wheel of Health. And it's this guy who, out in the, I don't know when he wrote it, 30s, 40s, who had studied the whole history of the Hunza. And they eat interesting foods even now. And I've met lots of people who've been there, apparently super friendly, lovely people. And at that altitude, you can grow things like black cherries, you can grow apricots and peaches and all sorts of fruits and nuts and so on. And because firewood was scarce, because of that region, there aren't a lot of trees, they didn't cook their food much. They would cook it with the minimum amount of cooking, and they would dry the fruits and they'd eat them all year, and they just stuff their pockets with apricots and so on. And if you've never had a Hunza apricot, it is a mile away from any other apricot that you find. it's whole different taste. They come dried with the stone inside, so be careful. They're very dry, unlike the treated apricots we have here that are soft and so on. These are very dry, so you can just soak them in water and let them swell up. But I like to chew on them. They're really quite chewy and fantastic taste. Really, really good. And because they're wild,
What's the name?
Hunza, Hunza, Hunza apricots. And because they're still the wild trees, every tree has a different taste. We're used to hybridized trees where every apple in the entire field, every apricot in the entire field is going to taste exactly the same. But in the wild, every tree is different. And so you buy Hunza apricots. Each one is different to the next in its flavor because they all came from lots of different trees. And you want to stay healthy. One of the ways forward is to go backwards. And there's a series of books called Nourishing Traditions by Sally Fallon Morell. And there's one about how to bring up healthy children, how to feed them.
That's Jeffrey Morell's wife, Jeff Morell, Andrena.
Yeah.
Sally.
Yes, right. So you know. So, our ancestors had it right. They knew. They didn't have bad teeth. They didn't have problems. So, except if they ate really badly. But, the primitive tribes, basically, when they were discovered, they might have green teeth or brown teeth and didn't brush them. But they were all there and big, wide and smiley.
Amazing, eh? I know another thing, because a lot of people say, oh God, I lose track of how much I should take each day. Now, I think you had on your website a sort of guide of how much people should be taking over a period of time.
On my website, I haven't been allowed to do that. Almost every government authority has made me take down every piece of information that I would want to tell you. At one point, because they told me to remove the word cancer, I put C ... That was no good. Oh, we know what that means.
Yeah.
So you can't even use one letter and dots. So that's why I started the Secret Health Club, because at least I can, in a club, you can say whatever you like.
Yeah, and, being banned. Yeah, because you've been banned a few times, I believe.
Well, it started in 2014 when I was working with UK Column, and they were busy trying to bust government-type paedophiles. So that really upset things. So I was just flack. They took me down because they told me I was being too television-like. I was giving health information that was too television-like. I was interviewing people over Skype. How television-like was that? And they said, we've got 24 hours to take all the videos down. There were hundreds at that point that I'd made. And they said, we'll fine you £250,000 if you don't take them down within 24 hours. I didn't have 250,000 pennies at that point, let alone pounds. But so I started the Secret Health Club then. So over the last 8 years or so, every time I see an article that's, oh my God, that's incredible, or a video that's just incredible, I put it to the site. I might delete some of the ones that aren't quite so good. So we're trying to, basically, if you go onto a certain page, hopefully it will be in the order that you might want to find it. If you go to the A to Z section, for example, hopefully there'll be the information you need, because you go online looking for the information, it's too confusing because there's too much. So I've tried to get it down to the really good bits.
Of course, online, everybody Googles for everything, but you don't know what is true in Google and what is not.
And also that you're not going to find me much there. I've been scrubbed. I'm a non-person. I apparently don't exist.
Yeah.
Except for the bad bits. I had one woman arrive at my doorstep, and there was a cameraman from the Sun newspaper hiding in the bushes, and they tried to entrap me on the doorstep. And because they basically couldn't entrap me, they just lied and printed it anyway. So, of course, that's still there, Yeah. So my neighbours don't talk to me because they believe what they've read on Google.
Oh, well, you can only educate some, eh?
At one point, it got so bad, because I was talking about autism and the fact that it's not incurable, as they say. And at one point, I had people with placards outside my talks. I had the police called. I had bomb threats. I had my venues cancelled. Hotels would refuse to let me in. Luckily they've stopped going for me now. But super crazy world out there. If you upset the financial pharmaceutical apple cart, they'll let you know.
Well, thank goodness for Clive's Secret Health Club, because I know, like I said,
it's all secret now.
yeah, not so much, but yeah, there's so much on there. I highly recommend. I say to people, just go on Clive's, put it in, and like you say, it's alphabetical, and you can read or watch videos on whatever you feel you've got going on. So,
but sorry to interrupt. Part of it was because I didn't have the time to do consultations so much because too many people wanted to consult. So I thought, well, if I can say, well, look, just go to the arthritis section, and that'll save you 200 quid.
And how about moving on? Like we're coming up to an hour, and it doesn't matter if we go over. I don't know what your time frame is, but what about the Tesla frequency devices? Can we talk about them?
Yeah, we can talk about those.
Because I know I experienced one of yours at one of the conferences, and my sister has bought one off of Sandy that Sandy had got off of you a long time ago, that we had a little play with last time I saw her. But those are amazing devices as well, aren't they?
They are. I'm surprised that Sandy parted with it.
I think she was frightened of it, to be honest, because every time we've been and stayed with her, when we've talked about it and she was going to go, it frightens me. And anyway, we've got it out, no problem at all. But yeah.
And she's a big, brave woman. I'm surprised. Anyway,
you're talking about the wand.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. So I've got one behind me. I don't know whether you can see it in the background.
No, well, I can't on here because I'm on my phone at the moment. So
for the benefit of everybody else, I'll just show you what they look like.
Yeah, Mal ended up the Gold Coast got them. You the Sunshine Coast.
So this type of device was common in the world. You'd find these sort of devices, sometimes much, much larger in hospitals. Most major hospitals would have had them, and bear in mind how long electrotherapy goes back. John Wesley was using electrotherapy 300 years ago, whenever it was. Guy's Hospital in London opened their electrotherapy department in 1843. And at that point, if you went to a hospital, they would, what do you want? Do you want hydrotherapy? Mineral water baths? There's a mineral water hospital in Bath itself still. Would you want homeopathy, herbalism? What would you want? Electrotherapy. And because electrotherapy was such a big thing, it became massively popular. And the pharmaceutical industry, as they started up, making all their drugs from petroleum, hated competition. So Rockefeller and his cronies wiped this technology off the surface of the globe. They went to all the medical schools and said, look, here's an endowment of whatever it was, $10 million. If you stop doing all that old-fashioned rubbish and just do radiation surgery and drugs. So that happened really successfully. So there were all sorts of other factors, including some of the machines interfered with the radios that were coming out at that point, and people didn't like that. Then one of the death knells was the Second World War, because you can turn the big machines into powerful radio transmitters, and they were worried that spies would convert them and use them, and one thing and another. Not talking about it at all to doctors anymore. It just died out. And yes, people find them in their attics every now and then, but they look at this old thing. Well, it's frightening, and if they dare plug it in, it goes, stuff happens that's scary. So they generally put them in the bin because they don't know what they are. So myself and probably in total about 6 or so people hunt them down and restore them. And I first got into this almost 20 years ago, and they work best for pain, chronic pain. You can be pretty confident that chronic pain will end in 5 minutes, but it might come back right away if the person keeps inflaming their body by eating the wrong foods or whatever's caused it in the first place. But I've had people who've been in 20 years of pain who've come out in 3 minutes and stayed out.
Really?
I mean, it's beyond. How could such technology have been lost and forgotten? I mean, I still can't answer that question. Almost 20 years in. Why didn't somebody's grandfather or grandmother or great-grandmother, whatever it was, say, look, son, look, daughter, this works, treasure it. But it didn't happen. The hypnosis, just like now, where most of the population of the world have been hypnotized to believe a lie or a load of lies, somehow, even back then, they were good at propaganda, good at hypnosis. Look at the Spanish flu and the causes of that. It wasn't some virus. No, that wasn't it. So, and radio waves are, as I think you know, a big part of illness. Have you read The Invisible Rainbow?
I've read some of it, not all of it.
I think the most stunning part of that, and I'm the same, I've read some of it, not all of it, was Bhutan. Did you read the section on Bhutan when they put electricity in for the first time? So Bhutan only allowed 1,000 visitors a year, and I think they still do. They just don't want foreigners. They just don't want them. Bad influence. Anyway, by the late 60s, I think, they decided to allow the installation of electricity. And so over a few years, the electric grid spread out and out to more and more remote villages. And as it did, you could map the diseases that hadn't existed in Bhutan happening.
Wow.
Yeah, so it is wow. And, in The Invisible Rainbow, for those of you who haven't read it, there are all these parts where radar came out. Lots of people got ill. Somebody I know was doing research on insects near Windsor. And several days a week, the insects would flinch every 10 seconds or so. And he worked it out. What it was 3 days a week, the planes from Heathrow took off in this direction. And another 3 days, they took off in this direction. When the radar was on, particularly for that direction or something like that, every time the radar rotated, the insects flinched. And so when radio happened, new sets of health problems happened. When all the electrical advances, because the technology that Tesla used was resonating Tesla coils and capacitors. Now, with that technology, if you tune 2 Tesla coils together, they can resonate every frequency that's known all at once. And it's scalar energy. It's not, you like these bulbs, these are filled, this one's filled with argon gas. It hasn't got a positive and negative to light it. It's linear energy. So it's, Tesla described it as electricity, but in a different form. So you take 50 watts of power from the mains plug, and you convert it into hundreds of thousands of volts, very, very high voltages, very, a very wide range of frequencies. You're generating violet light, which is in itself a healing light. You actually see plasma coming up the tube and into somebody's body. You touch the skin with it, and it creates ozone on the surface of the skin. I treated somebody, actually I've gotten to treat themselves. They got really nasty eczema. One treatment gone.
Really?
He's had that for years. They're anti-parasite. If I'd, people who discover me haven't been vaccinated, generally speaking, so I've never been asked by a vaccinated person, what should I do particularly? But lots of other family members have asked on their behalf. And
Yeah.
if I thought that I had a self-replicating nanobot in my body, I would blast the hell out of it with the highest frequency that I could tolerate without it being painful. I've just done an interview, it's not out yet, with Dr. Richard Massey, who used to be a medical doctor until about 20 years ago, and now he does live blood work. And I asked him, have you seen self-replicating nanobots? And so I'll put that video out shortly.
I think I had that in email. Was he a very slight gentleman?
Yes, he is. That was part one. Part two is coming soon.
Right.
But I thought it was pretty incredible. He's pretty incredible. His explanations as to why people get ill. I think most people haven't thought about it the way that he puts it. And I'd recommend anybody, if the medical system is failing them, even if food and supplements for some reason are failing them, he deals with the emotional level, and also the live blood work is fascinating. I thought I knew a bit about live blood work, but in the second part that we're putting out, well, even the first part, you see stuff that you just, oh my God, you suddenly see all these different bodily functions going on, and how healthy or not somebody is in exactly which areas. You know, it's a bit like iridology. Have you ever had iridology done on yourself? That as a diagnostic tool, that's incredible. But of course, the great thing about the live blood work is you can do a treatment with whatever it is, magnesium or this or whatever modality you might want, and you can then take another finger prick of blood and have a look and see if it's worked. Is the parasite gone? What's happened?
So I know people can, on your website, you've got you sell some devices, don't you? I think people can buy if they, or watch the videos if they're interested.
Well, again, I'm not allowed to put videos on my Clive De Carle website. Right. I'm not allowed to say anything, although we're looking into a way to try and battle that, because there are other websites that do, who have got all this information we've been told we can't have.
No.
So anyway, we're fighting.
Because you're too good at, with all the information. Obviously, why would they want somebody out there that's giving wonderful information, eh?
Well, yeah. So, however, it's all my videos are on brand YouTube and Odyssey and Rumble, or at least some of them are, most of them are, but they're all on the Secret Health Club. I think all the good ones, all the ones you need.
Yeah.
One other quick thing, just while I glanced at my notes while we were speaking. If anybody's in the position where they feel better in the summer than they do in the winter, they should start considering that they're probably almost certainly low on vitamin D in the winter.
Yeah.
Or move to Spain.
Well, yes, conceivably. But so many people tell me, when I used to do consultations, I'd ask them, do you feel better in the summer? And it's just such a sure way to show that people are low on vitamin D. And people who are low on vitamin D get something like 70% more cancer than the people who have enough.
Yeah.
And another thing, if people want to buy one of these old Tesla devices, all they need to do is write to Tesla@clivedecarle.com.
No.
Tesla at
I'm on the list for one of those.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Say it again.
On the list for one of those.
Oh, right. Yes. Yes, I know. You are. Yes, exactly. We will find one.
Yes. All in divine timing. Right. Yes. Anything else you'd like to share before we leave?
Well, how many days have you got?
Yeah, indeed. Well, I think for me, it was covering the most basic things that are going on for people. And I know, like, going back to the amino acids, I had been eating a few extra carbs, but then I got to remember I am a human at times as well. But I'm finding that I'm not eating so much, because I did suddenly feel that I gained weight and I wasn't feeling very comfortable with myself. But now that I've been taking a few extra things, I'm definitely noticing the difference in my body. I'm just feeling so much better and alive. And yeah, so it's sort of trial and error, and it's people giving you different stepping stones, right? Try this, and like, you know, I've shared your stuff, and then I've shared Darren's stuff, and I've said try some of this or try that. You know, is sharing for people that are ready to do the alternative way, but which also, I think, if you get the right, putting all these different things in, then you don't feel you want to eat a lot of these carbs. You sort of change your diet a bit more because you're feeling better.
Well, there's a lot to it. And also, as far as I know, every type 2 diabetic is low on the mineral chromium. So chromium, if you're craving sugar and carbs, for some reason the brain, well, if you have enough chromium, it lowers cravings for carbs and sugar. So that's worth knowing, I think. But the fulvic minerals, for instance, you know, we eat for nutrition. We don't eat to be full. We don't eat for calories. We eat for nutrition. So if you put stuff like magnesium, fulvic minerals and stuff in, then the body isn't craving so much because it's sort of full. So, and I think, some people say, well, I'm going to try one thing at a time. See what works. Then I'll know what works. And I say, no, do it the other way. Try, start low, but try everything, because we're all low on everything. So we might as well start with a little bit of everything and build up. And then once you're feeling fantastic, then you can knock a few off. If the symptoms come back, well, that was the important one. Because, I don't want to take a whole bundle of supplements every day. I don't take my full range. No. But if I was ill, I might for, a few days, a few months, a few weeks, whatever, because I'm interested in the stuff that works. I want them to be better immediately. I've got no patience, That's why I like the tester devices. They work so quickly. Well, I like magnesium and stuff, because you take the right amount. I've had people who are suicidal the next day, not suicidal. That's massive.
Oh gosh, I'll say, because apparently the suicide rate is so high, or has been in the last sort of 2 years since all these different things have been going on.
Clearly, but of course it wasn't suicide. That was COVID. They died of COVID. You know that.
Yes. Anyway, well, that's been as ever, really interesting and enlightening. So I thank you so much for taking time out to speak with us and share your wisdom and knowledge.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. Happy to come on any time.
All right. I'm sure we'll have you back a bit later on.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, I just want to put something up there that just to tell people there is. Okay. Oh, where is it going? Hang on.
Done.
All right, there you go.
Learned a little bit more today.
Well, thank you for asking the questions. It enabled me to go online and get all the.
Yeah, I'll have to. Because that's the thing. Talking live, I can see the messages coming up, and I'll have to go back through after and write down the different things that you spoke about to check out. So
okay, so we've got a couple of people there just putting some comments up. So
yeah, I can't read it on the phone. It's too small.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're still online. We're still live, by the way. So I just got to let you know that. But
yeah, I see that.
Yeah, thank you for as I said before, thank you for asking the questions, and it gave me time to pull up stumps. I noticed that in his Secret Health Club here, I'll just go and bring that up. Yeah, the Secret Health Club. If we're just going to put that up. Where are we? There it is. Okay, so I noticed there's a fee to join.
No. If you email him and ask for the password. He'll gladly give you the password to join his.
Okay, because I noticed here it's got all the testimonials, all the videos. That's just a static display. You just don't click on it. So hence the reason those organizations who consider him to be a competitor, you can't actually do that online. He's just giving you an idea, and then you can come privately into there.
Yeah, you know, he'll give you a password. So all you have to do is just email and ask that you'd like to join. But I mean, there's so much info on his website, videos. You can look up anything that you've got going on. Just masses of information there.
Okay. Yes, Vera, there's a lot to be interested about there. And yeah, Linda. It's always the way, isn't it? One member of the family.
Linda. Yeah, well, that's right. I don't know about Yvonne's still there. But yeah, I mean, I know when we had Darren on and I was re-listening to go back, because obviously I'm talking to him at the time and I can't write down stuff. So I had to go back and listen to things. But when I met him at the conference, he talked about the amino acids plus and the diatomaceous earth and something else I'm taking. And I ordered 3 packets last Friday. And I tell you, I've had so many aches and pains. I've had so much going on for me that sometimes I think, flip. Anyway, and those products have certainly made a difference to me. So there is a code. I mean, if people want to message me, I can send them the link for the code. But yeah, and I did cut and paste off his website all the info, which I sent you about the diatomaceous earth, because it just does so many things. And I can say, get some of that. He did say that you'd notice a difference in a few days. And I can say, hand on heart, I definitely have felt a difference. And I think this is what these shows are all about, is how can we help people naturally to be the best version of themselves from, you know, and I have to walk my talk. I have to take things so that I can promote them. I won't promote anything until I've taken it. But yeah, so yeah, so
I got onto Tina from fossilpower.com.au.
Yeah.
That's in Australia. Diatomaceous earth.
Yeah.
$19 for half a kilo, delivered to your.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm paying $3.99 for, I think it was 100 grams, and I have ordered a few extra packets because I know I can really feel the difference since I've started on that. So for me, that was like the next step of my journey to heal myself even more.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've been taking a teaspoon. I got it Friday, took a week to get to me, but that's what's happening in the world market with postage and deliveries. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday was 1 teaspoon in water. Before
I got to plug in a minute. It's on the phone.
Okay, you do that. Yeah, so for me it was Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 1 teaspoon in water, and then another glass straight afterwards. Come Monday, 1 in the morning, and then 1 at night, and then I've been doing that. What's today? Thursday. So
hold on 1 second, Kathy. Shut the door. The goats are outside.
I don't know.
Hang on, the goats are running around out here, and they're liable to come in.
They might as well come and say
Right,
hi.
sorry.
Yeah.
This is life on the farm here. Right. Okay. Sorry about that. Right. Yeah. Sorry. So you're taking it.
Yeah. So I've noticed. I think it was Monday. I discovered in the fridge there a packet of Tim Tams, you know, chocolate biscuits, you know, and they've probably been in there for 3 weeks, and I didn't realize they don't last 3 weeks in the fridge. They're gone, you know, and I'm thinking my parasites in my gut must have been thinking, feed me. So Monday and Tuesday night, everybody polished them off, and now my monkey mind's saying, well, they're no longer in the house, so we'll get rid of them.
Yeah, no, I can say exactly the same. I'm like, bye. So yeah, so it works within days. So highly recommended. And I think it's a tablespoon of Diet Earth, and then I take I think it's a couple of teaspoons of amino acid, and I've forgotten what the third one is. Anyway, yeah, it's all on his website and on Darren's Bright Presents with a not as in presents as gift. Yes. Anyway, I'm going to have to go. I've got a sound bath to host this evening, so I've got a few things to do today. So
yeah, so you just got to find the fulvic.
Fulvic minerals. It's FUL. It's on Clive De Carle sells them, and I think I paid. I can't remember. He said £10 a bottle, or but I don't take them every day. I just take them as and when I feel like it. But and like the iodine. I mean, Clive does the iodine and the fulvic minerals. I bought them in Glastonbury because a friend sells his products in her shop, but. That's affordable, and that's what our body needs. And I know the magnesium. I bought the big tub off of Clive because I had to start on 12 a day. So I know that's helped me. And obviously I don't want to age and can't get about, and that's how I was feeling before I upped all these different things, because I was just so stiff and tired and weary and la, even though you've got to keep going. But now I've really noticed a difference. So and I'm happy to share, and if anybody wants to message me or want to know anything else, I'm happy to share.
Yeah, so I've gone and put that. I mean, everybody used to have a medicine cabinet at home, didn't they?
Yeah, that's right. Now when I've seen some places, anyway, we won't go there.
Okay, so during the course of the show, I've mentioned to people YouTube. So you've got your own YouTube channel, which you've got all the shows on your site, so that people can actually come to. And the Radio FM 88 has a replica, has a backup, so you can go there and see all the other archive shows. And I think I sent you a list of all the different guests we've had. So I think I got up to 110, I think, from memory. But, and that means 110 people on the planet have got a dream. They're dreaming the new dream. They've got a passion. And it's important that they're actually living their life and fulfilling their dream. And that's and if we give them the opportunity to bring it to the consciousness, all the better, isn't it? And so people can share it. Something Clive said, which I saved, was a website called Earth. This one here. I think people need to lock this one in, earthclinic.com. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So remedies, herbs, vitamins, minerals, and supplements. Yeah, I think that should be something saved on everybody's browser as a go-to. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna have to go.
Okay. Good to talk to you. Thank you very much.
All right. Goodbye, everybody, and thank you for listening. See you next week. Same time, same place.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
All right.